Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Cut the Shit,
a podcast that takes a closer look at the IT industry, both the good and the bad.
My name is Cameron Plato.
And I'm Bryan Law.
And I'm Bryan Link.
On today's episode, I'm pleased to have Bryan Law and Cameron Plato back in the house. Today we're going to tackle an IT industry staple, the term agreement. In case you don't know what that means, we're talking about a multi-year agreement that locks in pricing and services for a period of years. 3 years is a very standard length. Think of your cell phone agreement as a pretty standard example. We're going to work hard to cut the shit on this one. We cover the history of the term agreement, where it makes sense and where it doesn't, and why SaaS software has made the term agreement such a problem for the industry. We also spend some time talking about some big changes coming to the Microsoft 365 licensing program. It's what they call the new commerce experience, and it has some pretty major changes baked into it. To finish up, we'll talk turkey, literally, and dessert, and Christmas decorating. You get the picture. Enjoy. Welcome back, guys. How the hell are you?
I'm doing great.
Groovy.
You know, we just talked before we started about how they would do this, and they still screwed it up. So, again, we're off to a great start. Guys, today we're going to spend a little time talking about something that's near and dear to both of your hearts, I know, the term agreement, which is a staple in the information technology world. It has a place in lots of other places too, right? Think of your cell phone agreement, other things. A mortgage is a term agreement, as an example, much longer term. But it has its place. It's something that is, really, again, kind of a core component of the way people that buy technology and sell technology contractually arrange to work together. And so on its face, you might think, well, why are we even talking about this? This sounds really boring. And I guess in some ways it is boring if you were going to talk specifically about it, but that's not what we're going to do, right? We're going to talk about what does it mean? Where did it come from? Why is it good or bad? What about it gives you heartburn when you think about the industry? What are some examples? I mean, you guys are both really old, unlike me. So you've seen a lot of this in your career. So I'd love to hear maybe some examples of both good examples and bad examples of where it makes sense, mainly to try to help people think about it, right? Because I think it's one of those things, a lot of times people take things for granted that either everything should be a term agreement or everything should be month to month. And the reality is nothing's that simple. So I thought it would make sense for us to kind of delve into that, and let's cut the shit a little bit around this specific piece of the puzzle because it is so prevalent in our industry. So to get started, why don't you guys give me some examples, or I'll start with, since there's two of you and I don't want you to start talking at the same time because you both will. Give me an example from your previous life, previous career life of a term agreement structure that you thought made sense at the time.
Salesforce.
You thought Salesforce made sense at the time?
Until we were in the term, and then I wanted out of it.
I was going to say, I don't remember that.
Let's go back further than that. Let's go back to when you used to sell data center stuff, Cameron.
A common term agreement that you typically run into, like a extended warranty, extended maintenance agreement. So like Cisco SmartNet. There's a term on that. You expect it. There's no downside to that term unless you sell the equipment during the term and you've prepaid for something that no longer is.
Why wouldn't you just buy that on a month-to-month basis? What's the benefit of buying it on a term? And it can't be because Cisco makes you. That could be the reason, but I'm thinking let's go back to sort of first principles. Why would they even do it that way?
Well, I can tell you they don't let you buy it short of a year.
I figured that.
So...
because they said.
Yeah, I think the benefit typically comes out of to the customer just is that you only have to screw with it once, and it locks you in for the duration of the term.
And so I assume the assumption is you're going to use the equipment for longer anyway, right?
Yes.
So you're going to need it more than month to month or a year, right?
That's correct. Yeah, if there's an incentive in pricing to buy a multi-year term, I understand that if you already plan on the device or asset lasting that 5 years or whatever it is. But in a lot of cases, you don't see a pricing benefit.
So Cameron gave us at least a little bit of an example of something from sort of the we'll call it the server world, that makes sense, right? A Cisco SmartNet multi-year agreement, since you generally buy that equipment and you're going to keep it longer than a year anyway, right? Law, what about telecom? I mean, it's known as the master of the painful term agreement. So maybe don't go negative right out of the gate. Try to go positive a little bit and give me some examples of where maybe earlier in your career you thought, man, this really makes sense.
Okay, so I would say when you are building fiber into a customer, into a building, and we were absorbing the cost associated with that in return for a term agreement. So instead of putting the customer in a position where they had to write a check for $50,000 or $100,000 or whatever it is, we gave them an option and we just back into it with a basic ROI model to say, you're going to pay this for the circuit, and the customer would much rather pay the OPEX associated with that, and was okay with the term until, either selective amnesia set in or maybe a new IT person, new CIO came in and wanted to know what they were paying for a given circuit, and hadn't been a part of the conversation. But I think that would be a good example of absorbing cost on the front end to spread it out on the back end, although it doesn't feel good at the end of it.
So in many ways, it's kind of a service plus a financing deal rolled into one.
It is, yeah. I mean, it literally, the circuit price was a derivative of that expense, so it was just what was the traditional pricing of the port and the loop in a particular case, plus construction essentially financed.
Now, Link, I'm not an accountant, and I don't claim to be one. And I'm certainly not an expert at all GAAP modeling, but my understanding is if you prepay a maintenance agreement at the time when you acquire a capital asset, you can depreciate the prepaid maintenance agreement as part of the price of the capital assets. So you get it off your OPEX.
Wow. Everybody get that? You want to say that again, Cameron? I'm just kidding. No, I know. You're right. You're basically saying, I mean, Bryan pointed out two benefits, right? The first was just the cash issue on the front end, right? Writing a big check can be hard for a company if they don't have access to cash just in the bank or through some other facility, right? So that's a real challenge that a multi-year deal with that piece rolled into it provides as an advantage. And then the second one you just mentioned, which was, there's an accounting treatment of that where you can get to that same point depending on how you do it, even if you want to prepay, right? So you can kind of get around that, assuming you do have the cash, and still make it an OPEX expenditure, assuming you structure it correctly. I think it's kind of the point you're making, right?
Correct. So there's a reason.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good reasons, right? I mean, and I guess, one of the things we want to talk about is all of that assumes there's a bunch of assumptions baked into that would, if let's say that's a 3-year or maybe a 5-year, let's go 5 years, because 5 years is a long time in technology, right? So if you installed back in the day, a T1 on a 5-year deal, and it was pretty expensive, by year 3 or 4, odds are your chance to buy something with better capacity at a lower cost was real. And there you were stuck, right? So when you've got a pace of change like that, multi-year deals or term agreements become problematic. And I'm sure you saw that, didn't you, Bryan?
Oh, for sure. All the time.
And Cameron, I mean, even in the data center space, same thing, right?
It does. I mean, if you think of buying hardware in the cloud world now, there's sort of a parallel. If you bought hardware and you expect it to have a 5-year life cycle, you essentially did a 5-year term on something. So you've got to buy at your peak or your perceived peak need, which is, of course, crystal ball. And that's some of the problem with the term-based agreement. You don't know what you're going to need at peak.
We won't change gears, but let's use a really good example of this, maybe to the negative, I guess. But let's talk a little bit about the big news out of Microsoft in terms of the move to what they're calling the new commerce experience. This has to do with the Microsoft 365 licensing platform. So Outlook, Office, Teams, their collaboration communication suite, which is I mean, it's 800-pound gorilla by 100 miles. Google Workplace is a very, very distant second in the business world. I'm thinking market share is somewhere 70, 80%, I believe.
Microsoft.
So they are, they're dictating the market, right? They pretty much own it, and that's nothing new. Started, as a cloud-based platform, I guess about 10 years ago now. It was early 2011, 2012. So they're about 10 years into this thing. And it's a great platform, right? We sell it. We're a tier 1 direct reseller of the platform to customers. Customers get good use out of it. The products are good. They've done a bunch of enhancements. I mean, everything from Teams on down the line, right, to call plans. I mean, they've really bolstered the platform to be something that is pretty incredible, really, for what it can do for a business, small, really all the way up to the largest companies in the world. And so, I'm singing its praises because I believe in the product. I don't think any of what's about to follow, which is probably going to be negative, I think if you were to listen to this, has to do with the product itself. I will say up front that one of the interesting things about this move that Microsoft has made, and one of the things I was thinking about is trying to understand why they did this, and they actually had some good reasons for some of the changes that they're making. And one in particular is they're raising prices. They're raising prices anywhere from 15 to 25% on their base licensing. And while that may sound expensive, they haven't raised prices in almost 10 years on their products. And that's almost unheard of, particularly for someone who's got that kind of market power. Now, they didn't necessarily start off that way, but they really did because everybody just had installed versions of this stuff and then moved over to the cloud platform. So to think that you would go 10 years and not raise prices on a product is sort of hard to believe for a for a market leader.
It's not a stagnant product either, considering the amount of innovation and investment they've put into it. It's fascinating they haven't raised prices.
Oh, I mean, they've given a list of literally over 1,000 enhancements to the platform over that time frame. I mean, it really has gone from something that was really good to just out of this world in terms of how good the platform is. And so I don't think, at least from my perspective, it would be hard to be upset about the price increases. I mean, you don't like it. Nobody likes a price increase, but you can't really say, well, man, they're just sticking it to us. That's definitely not the case when it comes to the pricing. So I don't think most
in
of
and of itself, that's pretty straightforward. Price increase is what it is. I think everybody could tolerate that.
Nobody's happy about it, but they get it, especially anybody running a business.
I mean, truthfully,
Yeah.
they've got such a lock on the market. It'd be like bitching about the price of gas. Like,
who cares?
Get over
What are you
it.
gonna do about it?
You're going to pay it.
It's
Right.
a cartel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are a couple of problems with the way it worked. Customers may not have noticed this as much, but maybe, contract terms, it was a one size fits all. It was what they called an annual agreement, but you could cancel at any time. So realistically, it was basically a pure consumption model. You paid for what you used, right? And you could start a contract at any day and cancel on any day. And so, at least from the partner
daily
perspective, it was pretty
proration.
complicated, right? It was so consumption oriented that maybe it was a little too consumption oriented. Like it was sort of difficult. And we've had problems with customers trying to explain how changes flowed through the month, right? And because it's just
it's
so easy for
complex.
things to change. So I think those changes, make sense. Moving to, we're going to make everything, billing's going to be first of the month. Everything's going to be billed on first of the month, and that's the way it works. And so that's clean. And moving from a one size fits all contract to, hey, we've got monthly, we've got annual, and we've got 3 year. That makes sense. I mean, maybe somebody there could be good reasons to want to lock in for a 1 year or a 3 year term. In this case, you're going to use the platform. So if you can lock in a price break, well, why wouldn't you, right? Assuming there's some flexibility or whatever. So on its face, the changes don't seem to be problematic.
Well, most people weren't taking advantage of the ability to trim off or daily prorate the use of those services. So to the traditional consumer or the provider that wasn't taking advantage of that, or exploiting, it's a strong word, but delivering that optimization, I don't know that those people will feel much of a difference.
Yeah, not much change, really.
Yeah, I
I mean,
think so.
especially if you were a legacy EA or a select agreement customer where you had already committed to an excess amount of licenses. If you needed 1,000, I guarantee they didn't sell you 1,000. You ended up buying 1,400 because it was the assumptive peak of utilization sometime during the term. So that, I don't think that everybody's going to feel it. I think it's unfortunate that the benefits of the legacy commerce experience, maybe we'll call it, is they'll never experience that. They'll never, bear fruit out of that.
Yeah, I think it's a real loss in this process because,
Me too.
like I said, they're going to have month-to-month pricing, but the sort of the kicker on that is the price. There's a pretty significant price increase to be able to go month-to-month on top of the price increases that are coming to the tune of another 20% on top. So you're talking about, in some cases, almost a 50% increase if you wanted to stay it really, in essence, in the same type of agreement that you're in today. Now, you may not realize that's the kind of agreement you're in, depending on what you're doing with those licenses. But functionally, that's there. And some people are going to figure that out once let's say they just convert everything to annual, and then they need to, something happens, they have some business change or something, and they want to reduce those number of licenses, and they're not going to be able to do that. Whereas before, that would have just happened, and there would have been absolutely no issue with that. So that flexibility around the month to month is you can have it, but you're going to pay dearly for it now.
Yeah, it's you almost feel a bit set up with it. Get you on the juice and get you excited about it, and now all of a sudden it's like you can still have it. It just got a lot more expensive. Like we're going to do it our way, or you can do it your way. Your way is going to be expensive, depending on the size of business that you've got today and the amount of users. Obviously, smaller guys probably won't feel it much anyway, and can probably stay pretty flexible. But those medium size and enterprise level businesses, it's definitely a big difference.
Yeah, and I think for me, when I thought about it, it felt like Microsoft was, if you think about the way they price Azure, right? It's a consumption model. Now you can buy reserved instances, you can buy some volume if you want for a discount, but the pay-as-you-go is there, right? And will always be there, or well, it looks like it'll always be there. And it felt like 365. They were lining that up with that to be a similar thing, to be able to continue to buy it kind of on a consumption basis. And if you want it, and I was sort of thinking, okay, if you want to buy an annual, then you can lock in a discount. Well, that's cool. And I think if there was someone from Microsoft, they would say, well, that's exactly what we did. But I don't think most folks would see it that way when you look at that differential for how much more expensive it costs for monthly. I think that's the part that's a signal. That's a big signal. I think the other thing that bothers me about it is, to use an old reference that Obama used to use, when he was talking about Obamacare, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. You can't keep your contract now. Everybody's got to change, right? And I think that's the part that's, I think some of our customers who do use, who have been pretty good about optimizing their environments are going to struggle with that. Wait, you mean we can't do this anymore? No, you can't. That's going to be a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow, I think, for some folks. You have to know where you're going to be in the future for it to make sense. And hey, 365 licensing is probably more consistent than other things in that sense. I mean, if you look, given most of our life in business, if you were to say, hey, 5 years from now, I'm probably going to be using Outlook, that would have been a pretty safe bet, as opposed to, hey, I'm using, particular server technology or a particular, bandwidth service, relative to connectivity. But nevertheless, it doesn't matter. This isn't just, hey, I'm going to be using it. It's, I got to know the numbers that I'm going to be using.
It would make, to me, more sense if you did a financial commitment, like a revenue commitment. Doesn't matter what it's made up of. Yeah. But if you'll commit to spend $120,000 over the next 12 months, then I don't care if you spend $10,000 on one product or $1,000 on 10 products, per month. It shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, we'll leave it on that really positive note.
Yeah. Wow.
And we'll move to our wrap up, and we'll talk a little bit about. I mean, it's that time of year. It's Thanksgiving, right? And I teed up a little bit of this on the last episode. I asked our guest and colleague Ryan Harris how he liked to make his turkey. So I'll ask you guys the same question. What's your preference on turkey prep?
Whatever my wife does.
Lame.
You definitely have to brine. That's it. That's a key part of the process. And then I'm split between fried and smoked.
I do like fried.
Yeah, I like, if it's smoked properly, I like a smoked turkey. But
yeah, that was Ryan's preference. I'm all in on fried. I've been doing it for about 10 years.
And buy a fried turkey.
And it's like I said, it's a little bit scary. You usually get some first degree burns in the process, but you got to go out there and babysit a little bit. But it happens fast, and I tell you, the peanut oil makes it the juiciest turkey I've ever had.
You just got to go get those fireman gloves, dude. You got to grab those fireman gloves, and you'll be good to go.
What do you know? Your wife makes your turkey. You don't even get. You're not even allowed to comment at this point.
I like to. Well, I don't want to cook the turkey for starters, right? I go get the turkey, and then my work there is done. I'm errand boy for those couple of days leading up, and I'm good with that. I know my place. I'm not a chef. Cameron's a chef.
I've got this old van that's like a camper van, and I typically will freeze once a year smoking that turkey, babysitting the fire. So you basically wake up on Thanksgiving morning or from a 20-minute nap, or you've been up all night constantly tending to the fire. That makes a fried turkey exceptional.
I was going to say that's a level of commitment that I don't have. Part of the reason I like the fried turkey is it takes about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas smoking takes all night, and baking in the oven you got to get up at 5 in the morning and get it in there because it takes a long time too.
By the way, I do that part too. I do get up and put it in.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. You do something. I'm glad to hear that.
I do a lot of shit, Link.
I can tell.
I was thinking about this the other day. Have you ever gone to a restaurant that's not like an American fare restaurant, but just name any other nationality of food? There's never turkey on the menu. What is it that they know about turkeys that we don't know?
That's a great question.
Think about it.
I'm not sure. You seem to have an answer, or you
people
just
don't eat turkey eggs either. Like, what the hell good is a turkey anyway?
Things that make you.
Hey, you want a chicken egg? Sure. Turkey egg? Never heard of it.
Deep Thoughts by Cameron Plato.
This occurred to me last night. Turkey's a weird protein.
What is you guys? What's your dessert of choice? I'm just moving right away from the turkey.
Pumpkin pie for sure.
Pumpkin pie.
Pecan pie.
Pecan pie. Give me some. Yes, sir.
Uh-huh.
See, that's my mom too. I can't do that. Yeah.
Pumpkin pie, man. I mean, it smells so good cooking, but it looks like the texture of it is awful, and the taste is worse.
Wrong.
Like, it's so bad. It's so bad. I want to like it.
Would you eat it without crust or whipped cream?
Yeah.
Would you eat just the filling, like pumpkin pie filling?
I did. I'm I go both ways here. I'll get both parties covered.
Whoa.
So I'll get a libertarian comment in here too if you want.
Nah.
Yeah, why don't you go for it?
Yeah, do it. Why not? Round us out.
I mean, at some point. Yeah, at some point. I mean, taxation is theft. Okay, we're done.
Drop the
mic. Cut that shit.
I do have a couple more wrapping this up because I know you guys and I know how sentimental you both are. So when it comes to Christmas movies, do you start watching Christmas movies on Thanksgiving Day or do you wait until the day after? And I'm talking about the classics, the real Christmas movies.
Football dominates the TV on Thanksgiving.
What's that?
Football dominates the television on Thanksgiving usually.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so nobody's sitting down to like cozy up to watch a movie.
Yeah.
I definitely wait. Listen, I'm the guy that likes to start Christmas a day before Christmas.
And end it.
And like the Christmas day, I'm like, let's take down the tree. Like, I like that.
So you're a
Just
Scrooge.
condense
That's what
it.
you're
No,
saying?
not a Scrooge. I was accused of being a Scrooge, so I lit up the house and bought like a 20-foot Santa and put it on the roof and like went crazy with it just to like make my point. But I hate taking this. I actually like Christmas. I just hate getting everything out of storage, putting it up, and then taking it back down. That annoys me. So now there's services. It's like an Uber.
Well, nobody likes that. I mean, just for the record, like it's not like anybody gets excited
Apparently,
about that
I
part.
like it less than most.
I mean, it's, okay. Because I was going to say, Law, he acts like he likes weed eating, but nobody really likes that. They like the way the yard looks when it's done, right? I mean,
And
you can take some
effort.
satisfaction out of it, but at the end of the day, you wouldn't just choose to. You don't go cut other people's yards just for fun.
Sure. When do you do the Christmas setup there, Link?
We traditionally have done it the day after. We usually put a tree up the day after, and then Leanne does all the lights on the tree because she has like a whole thing, and it's really complicated. But our kids are pretty upset with us because last year we bought a fake tree for the first time ever, and it already has the lights
nice,
on
isn't
it. So literally, now we bought a fancy fake tree, so it looks good, but it's still a fake tree. But man, it changes the whole game, Cameron, to your point. And so we just hang some lights outside. It's pretty minimal, so it's not too hard.
And then are you a New Year's tear down?
Usually around then, we it's not, we don't really have a clear like it's got to come down on this day. We're not really dogmatic in that way. How about you guys? I mean, you already told us you want the shit down as soon as you can.
Yeah, I do.
Law, what about you guys?
I think we've had it. I think we've had the stuff up as late as February before.
I was gonna say my father-in-law bought a Prius and he kept his
That
tree up
happens.
because it was a live tree for a year.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, we pull it out and the needles are falling. It makes the biggest like the spot we put the tree, and I always come in with something bigger than it was last year. Like last year's tree was absolutely redonkulous. Like it was one of those like how are we getting this in?
You went Clark Griswold style
for sure, but. Man, it just
pretty
it does
full,
something.
a lot of sap.
It does something to our house. Like that little spot right there, it just becomes like the Christmas magic sets in. It's like this comfortable area. It just looks totally different.
You teed me up for my follow-up. So how many Christmas Hallmark Christmas movies are you guys going to watch this year?
See, we don't do a lot of that. We do some old school like Charlie Brown.
I know you don't, Cameron. You're already a Scrooge, so we already know you.
Things like that. Christmas Vacation is a freaking staple. The Christmas Story is always finds its way in there, but I mean that's kind of who
so
we
you
are.
stick to the canon. You haven't gone Hallmark movies yet.
We haven't gone crazy. No. And you know what?
You just wait. You get
there's
that
never
empty
a lot of
nest. You'd be
downtime.
surprised what happens.
That's the difference. There's just not a lot of downtime. Like we're still, even when we're breaking, it seems like we're still rapid fire running in different directions. Doing a lot of we still do a lot of weed eating. Like
I bought a tree once. It was too big, and I had to take an axe and chop it out.
I swear, I thought it was going to happen last year.
Yeah,
I thought I was going to have to get the clippers out.
Oh yeah,
I was ready to do it. It just kept growing. Like Amy was like, okay, you officially have overdone it. It's me and Creed typically go do it. Like it's become our thing.
They don't look as big outside.
Man, this thing went. It was the Griswolds for sure.
Knocking out Margot and
I was like,
Todd's
you know
window.
what? This can be the one
Exactly.
we don't take down. It'll be here forever.
I know, Todd. All right, on that note, guys, we'll wrap it up. Thanks for joining. Not exactly a happy topic as we talked about term agreements, but we finished with some turkey and Christmas. So
Yeah,
hopefully that'll inspire people for the spirit. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes,
Thanksgiving.
absolutely.
Cut the Shit is brought to you by Plow Networks and is produced by Talia DiDomenico and Emily Starnes. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, we'd be most grateful if you would share it with others who you think might be interested in hearing a somewhat irreverent take on the arcane world of IT. If you aren't enjoying it, well, why are you listening? You can find links to this podcast on our website at plow.net, on our YouTube and Instagram feeds, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, LinkedIn, and probably a bunch of other places too. Or as my kids like to say, just Google that shit. You'll find it for sure. Take care and have a great day.